Test, test.
And here.
It's also excusable. So I go back and then.
She speaks up here. Speaks of my God.
No, periodic.
Yeah, part of that has to do with this wage of time. You know, you can almost. It's like, if I was out of also right. Oh, that's easy. But, see, those other songs, they like profile. Okay, sure. I guess we'll be done back a lot. But he's saying, okay, you gave me something nice, and then I'm gonna go along with it. Because he's shouting. You're a lawyer. Are you guys supposed to do something earlier? You want to sign it, oh, wait a minute. I'm just happy.
What?
That's not a problem.
There's a camera right here,
Yeah.
and then there's people on students, so they gotta be there. Okay.
Everyone receives the newsletter.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
Everyone in the whole room, huh?
I can make an announcement and ask, again, but
No, that's good.
in the sampling that I did, yeah,
Perfect. Hey, can you guys hear me? Anybody online?
Yeah, Robbie, I can hear you. This is Jeff.
Chris or Jeff, can you hear me?
Hello.
Yep,
Okay,
can
there
hear
we
you.
go. Thank you. You guys can
Thank
hear
you.
everything okay?
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Thank you.
No, that's.
Sure. Hey, maybe if we set up a time. Do you know my email address?
All right, everyone, I think we're gonna get started here. Hopefully the audio is not gonna get a little weird echo. Here.
Is that better?
You might not need this one. Okay, yeah, I was worried about that one. If I haven't met you, I'm Robbie. Great to meet you. We're happy to have you here. We got an action-packed agenda. Is it still the thing?
Yeah, that's already.
That's muted, right? You hit mute?
You want me to mute it?
I think so. If we have a question, we can unmute it.
Yeah, that's why it sounded.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, we're good. Everything's great. Anybody that's online, can you make sure you're muted just in case that's doing anything?
Yeah, but we can't hear you very well.
Okay, any of the speakers, we gotta speak up. And then let's just turn that one off. It's that one, right? Let's not use it. Yeah. It's on the side there. Let's see it. All right, well, as you can tell, Sean's out of town, but Yeah, like I said, a lot of good information hopefully tonight, and like always, hopefully it's a great interactive conversation. Okay, yeah, we're good. All right. Yeah, so let's get right down to business here. I'll turn it over to the Santa Monica Police Department to come give their quick update.
How's it going, everybody? I'm Officer Toggle. I'm the neighborhood resource officer for B3. So I've been I guess you can call me the substitute interim for you guys since he's been out, but he's back now. This is Officer Avila. Before we get started, I'm supposed to say Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there, all the grandmothers, or if you have daughters that are mothers, Happy Mother's Day to all you guys. And Officer Avila is going to introduce himself, just give us a little update on the status.
Everybody, I just came back from paternity leave. I was out for a while. Thank you. We have a soon-to-be 4-year-old and now a 2-month-old. 2-month-old's a little colicky, so keeping us up, but everybody's healthy, so I'm glad to be back. I want to thank Christian for taking care of the beat while I was away. Definitely excited to be here. Coming up on 19 years of law enforcement experience. Worked a variety of assignments. I actually hired both of these guys, did their backgrounds. So obviously, we look for the biggest, strongest athletes around. But no, definitely glad to be back. And today, what I want to do is get into some of the stats, the crime stats for the month that stood out, and kind of talk about them, and then give you guys some updates as far as what we're doing with the community engagement team. So from April 12th to today, we ran some of the stats, and some of note, some issues that note came out. There was a carjacking in the 2100 block of Ocean. 3 subjects approached a Lyft driver who was on his break. They engaged in a brief conversation with him, then assaulting him, taking his keys and his car. So that's an active case that our detectives are working right now. There was also a burglary, 3 burglaries between the April 12th and today. One of which was in the 3100 block of 4th Street.
I think that one happened 2 days ago. There's a mentally unstable individual that has a fixation with that property. I believe he told the officers that he has some faith or religion that's telling him that his body is one and belongs to the property, which he's not out there, right? So he was ultimately arrested for the burglary, and I'm sure they're in the process of working to get a restraining order from that property and the property owners. But the property it's not in use right now. It's actually in the process of being remodeled. So it's kind of like a,
So it's Marine and 4th?
just south Marine.
The house is being renovated, so nobody's living there right now. Also, 7 vehicle burglaries from locked vehicles. That's definitely an increase. The MO or the way they're doing things are either a window smash, prying the trunk from work vehicles or work trucks, taking power tools, or punching the door lock. So my advice for everybody, only leave items in your vehicle that, you're willing to lose. And we shouldn't have to say that, we should live in a society where nobody's breaking into cars, but keep your items out of sight. Because if somebody's walking down the street and they start looking into the vehicle windows, you have a laptop there. I get it, we're busy throughout the day. People are on their phones all day, you kind of forget to grab certain items. Just be aware, when you park your car, take the belongings that you need, and make sure you secure your vehicle, whether locked or alarmed. Always works. And then 2, being a neighborhood group, if you see a suspicious person in the neighborhood, give us a call. Because we like to get out there and at least talk to those individuals, compared to, somebody's car gets broken into and the neighbor's like, hey, oh yeah, 3 days ago I saw somebody looking in your window. So see something, say something. Also, there's been an increase in coyote sightings due to the Palisades fire. It's displaced all wildlife. Some tips.
They are not pets. Please don't feed them.
Do not feed them. If you have a small animal or small animals right there,
appetite.
you're walking, pick them up. Leaving food out for cats or dogs at night, bring it in. Water bowls as well, they're looking for food, water, shelter. Also, if you have hedges or your backyard is kind of overgrown with grass and bushes, trim it because they like to hide and, you know, find a safe spot to lay low until the evening. If you see one on the street, maybe approaching you, don't lose eye contact or visual of the coyote. Worst thing you do is probably run, make noise. If you have a stick or a whistle or anything, just to let them know you're not afraid of them, you're not gonna run, because more than likely, they're more afraid of you than you are of them.
I think the police department's gonna push out a post tonight or tomorrow on our social media, giving you just a list of guidelines and just some helpful hints. So if you come in contact with the coyote, what to do. I think one of the things was to make yourself bigger, appear bigger. You wanna show them how to?
I brought you. So I brought the biggest boys there, so no coyotes. I know I'm safe tonight, right? But that's what we have for the stats. Are there any questions?
Did you hear the news item on the radio about, about the squirrels in Santa Monica? The park down by the, Palisades Park, is that? Or- I should know, only been there 34 years.
They're back?
And they're tunneling, they're costing a lot of money because of the tunneling and other things that they're doing, and the tourists that even. So you guys gonna have anything to do that, maybe when you're on patrol? Say,
We
don't-
did have
don't-
details where, not to make a joke, but it's called the Squirrel Patrol Detail on the Santa Monica, but they would send officers, animal control out there to deal with these unruly squirrels. I'm beat too, so I'm dealing with the coyotes right now. So if you guys see a coyote, call our animal control number. If they're aggressive or they're God forbid, attacking anybody, call us, call 911 so we can get out there. Ma'am, you had a question?
Small question. I appreciate the new speed limit of 25 miles an hour, especially on the open way. But there's no enforcement, so nobody pays attention. Is that going to continue?
Next meeting, our traffic, is he the acting
He's the acting
supervisor?
sergeant of the motor unit, but he's the lead traffic investigator. So he's gonna come and give a presentation. He's full of knowledge when it comes to the traffic violations, and he works closely with the Department of Transportation. So he's gonna come here and give a brief presentation, and he's completely in tune with all the traffic stuff.
So what do you know about, like on Fifth Street, north of Ocean Park, there's no speed bumps? And people race down there, and I don't know how to report them. But you don't know.
If there's a
about that.
vehicle speeding in the neighborhood, obviously contact us for speed humps or bumps. Department, transportation. You could go online, contact them. They could do a survey to see if that street qualifies for speed humps or bumps. But I would definitely go there first.
We also have a department that's the mobility department that's within our city that also, all the construction you see going on kind of over around Broadway, those bike lanes that are putting in with the curb lines and stuff like that. We have surveyors that work for the city that have also been involved in that. I think his last name's Kozak, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
I would reach out to him because they're heavily involved in how streets are, being paved and the different types of ideas they're coming up with just to increase safety, not only for you guys, but for bicyclists, pets, all that stuff.
Oh, wonderful. He's the Department of Mobility.
Yeah, mobility, I think,
Transportation.
So for those that are part of the Open Park Association, I've been working on the outline of a plan to let the city know where the problem areas are, because there are some very dangerous intersections where people on feet around here. So maybe I can talk to Sean when he gets back and we can build some kind of group inside here so we can all get together, like the comments on Fifth Street, and just go back to the city and say, from a neighborhood perspective, this is what we see. And we can't really affect enforcement, so everyone needs to keep that in mind, right? But what we can do is we can go back to the city and go, wouldn't it be nice to have a pedestrian activated crosswalk here or a stop sign? So that's the kind of.
And when it comes to the enforcement part, and I'm sorry to touch on it a little bit, I know a lot of these things you think are minor, or maybe I'm just being cautious, maybe that person's just driving through the neighborhood, right? When in doubt, just call us, because you guys would be surprised how often little things turn into big things, like, oh, this person is wanted for something, or this person's on probation for breaking into cars, or this person has stolen stuff already in his car, right? So you guys calling helps us, gives us more reason to go look and stop the person. I mean, we're gonna have to probably find other reasons to stop them as well. But if you guys weren't to call them, then we have no idea that somebody's speeding down Fifth Street unless we happen to be in the area at the time, right? So don't hesitate to call. Like I said, we're busy, we're a small city, but we're not busy enough where we can't, at least go look for this person or see if we can identify who they are.
And just briefly on that real quick, to touch on that, when you call and if you're gonna place a call for service, some things we're looking for, if you're gonna call regarding the speeding vehicles, try to get the make and model of the vehicle, or if we can't get that, just try to at least get a color. Maybe it's like a sedan or a truck, whatever it may be, because that helps officers when we go there to specify which car we're looking for. A lot of times we'll get the call where I have cars speeding down the street and that's it. So then we go to the area, we don't know which vehicle we're looking for, right? Where my partner may pick up the car 4 blocks over and we're looking for like a white Honda with a blue sticker on the back, and we find that car, so now we can follow it for a little bit to see if it causes any more infractions or he breaks any other laws.
Time for one more
You mentioned
question.
that there were 3 burglaries. You gave the general area, one of them, what were the other 2?
So you guys know for my crime stats, well, not crime stats, call for service. I don't want to take up too much time, but I could, once we're done here, I'll give you those addresses.
Okay.
General area.
Yeah, just curious.
Just trying to read the small
What other
print.
things are happening?
They are in the OPA beat or the OPA area.
Okay.
And all those breakages are happening on Main Street, so I'm sure these people that are going to these businesses late at night, they're tourists, people are opportunists, right? So where are you gonna go? You're most likely not gonna go to the neighborhoods, you're gonna go over here where I'm a tourist for the day, I come out here, I park my car and I leave all my stuff in there, those are where they're most likely gonna hit. So we are increasing our overtime details where we have cars stationed on the thoroughways, so such as Main Street, we put 2 cars there, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, to show presence and have their lights on driving up and down.
And typically, if there's a certain area in the city that's being hit with burglaries or you name it, we have a crime impact team that we set out there. We send them out and they go and they combat those issues, so.
Just to follow up on the discussion you brought up with speeding on these small streets. I live very close to Second Street. We have at least one other member here who's on Second Street and another who has been very active in this subject I'm about to bring up, but isn't a member of this group, so it's not here, but she's great active. Anyway, the point is, a number of us for years have been asking the city to install speed bumps. The answer we get back at various times is, well, the fire department doesn't want it because it interferes with the speed limits with which they can make a call. And that's in the project paragraph as well.
I think we just got an answer to this question, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, so
Department of
there's,
Transportation.
yeah.
Yes, and when we
Yeah.
call them, they say can't do it because of the
And,
spark.
and I think maybe next month, the speaker might be the right person to dig in, right? They
He'll be here
mentioned that
next
there's-
meeting.
Yeah,
It's not might be, he is the person to speak to.
yeah.
Okay.
He knows it like a bag of sand.
And also decreasing the speed limit, is that something you guys, if another department weighed in on you as they were processing our complaints, would you say Second Street and Third Street are not 25 or 35? Oh, the cop that hid in the garage, driveway to catch speeders, told me, when I asked him, what does he think that it was motorcycle cop, that the proper speed limit should be? He said 35 miles an hour.
And they have to do
I
a survey
think-
on speed limits for certain streets.
It should be 15 or 20, there's
So-
like an alley.
So we just went through that. That decision is made at a much different level. They look at average speeds across distances. There's state laws that have to be conformed to. We did everything we could to lower the speed limit. So now the speed limit on Main Street, Nielsen are 25. Anything adjustments were necessary on Third or the streets that you live on. So it'll be, it's a cycle that happens, I think, every 7 years.
No speed limit sign.
Well, that's something that we can take care of, because that's
Yeah.
one of the issues I talked about when I was doing earlier.
Yeah, it has been a topic for the last couple of months that has come up, so I think it's awesome that they're bringing the expert and the person that we can talk to, so. Thank you guys so much, appreciate it.
Thank you.
So our next speaker, unless is the mayor on that? I don't see her on Zoom, so Sunny Wang is with the Water Resources Department, and I'll let him say much more about what he wants to talk about with everyone today, but I'm gonna turn it over to him right now. Sure, if you'd like to, yeah, that's fine. I can.
I'll turn my camera on over here.
Okay, cool.
Evening, everyone. I'm Sunny Wang. I'm the city's water department. The water utilities manager, so I head our water and wastewater utilities for the city. I'm here tonight to share information regarding our 5-year water and wastewater rate adjustment. I'm sure a lot of you have received our Prop 218 notices. We're here to provide information as well as provide answer any questions you may have regarding the rate increase. Before we begin, I just want to provide a quick overview on the services we provide. As I mentioned, we provide both drinking water as well as wastewater services to the city. We serve roughly 93,000 residents and over 2,700 commercial customers. Just some statistics on the right-hand side, but probably the most important one for the discussion tonight is the 4 water storage reservoirs. That's probably the big topic of discussion because they need a rehabilitation and upgrades. Before we dive into the proposed rate increase, I want to revisit the Water and Wastewater Enterprise Fund from the past 5 years and the impacts that it has gone through. Similarly, the COVID-19 pandemic that impacted our funds in terms of water use, as well as market volatility coming out of the pandemic. That's pretty unpredictable at the moment, as well as climate instability, switching from severe drought conditions to wet winters. Right, we're in this pattern where it's like 2 years of severe drought, then we get into 2 years of wet winter. And that constant shift is creating problems on both supply and demand for our enterprise. That both resulting in decreasing revenue to cover our fixed costs. And looking at our fixed costs, approximately 70% of our cost is fixed, meaning if you use 1 gallon or 1,000 gallons, that same cost still needs to be expended to make sure that water is available and ready when you turn on your faucet. All right, so roughly 70% of that's fixed and 30% is that actually water production. And looking at market volatility, this is probably one of the biggest factors that impacted our 2 enterprise funds the last 5 years. That black dashed line down the middle is sort of when the pandemic happened. And prior to that, you see the general inflation, the consumer price index, the California construction cost index, as well as the handy equipment index, the HWI, which is more specific to the public utility sector. They were all pretty stable, pretty predictable on what those inflation rates were prior to the pandemic. And you see after the pandemic, they're all over the place and increasing quite rapidly, especially for our industry, the public sector, that green line. And this past year is probably one of the highest we've seen for quite some time, of over 60% inflation rate that we have to deal with in our sector. All those different factors contributing to net revenue shortfall in our water enterprise fund, about 27 million in the past 5 years. Some of those shortfalls to deliver our capital projects, including water self-sufficiency projects that was promised to the community in our last rate study. Those shortfalls are made through grants, made up through grants, as well as issuing a revenue bond to continue on those capital projects. We deferred over about 15 million of water replacement projects for those funds to stay whole despite those revenue shortfalls. Similar story on our wastewater side. We had a net revenue shortfall roughly almost 17 mil or so. Similar story as the water enterprise fund. Those shortfalls were offset through grants, as well as low interest loans from the state to carry on in our water self-sufficiency projects. There is 1 year where we met the revenue target. That's due to the low interest loans principal forgiveness from the state. So they actually gave us 4 million in principal forgiveness. So that's why that 1 year we actually met revenue targets for our fund. And both our water and wastewater funds are enterprise funds, meaning they are separate from the city's general fund. So we have nothing to do with property taxes, sales taxes. all of our operation is based on the rates that you pay in your utility bill for water and wastewater services. So despite the shortfalls on both sides, we still delivered on several of our water self-sufficiency projects, including the award-winning SWIP on the left-hand side that was completed in 2022. And we're in the final stages of performance testing in upgrading our Arcadia water treatment plant, as well as restoring the limpid well field. Those will be in full production by summer. We also completed the advanced water metering infrastructure project. All of our customers' homes where you can see your water usage in real time and get leak alerts on the app. You can sign up for that. So looking forward to the next 5 years in our rate studies. These are some just key goals for our enterprise funds to invest in our aging infrastructure. We want to continue to maintain high quality and reliable service for both water and wastewater. For this period, we're also want to investing in reliability and resiliency, primarily with our reservoirs. So remember our slides from 5 years ago, that third bullet was investing in water self-sufficiency. This time we're really focused on our water reservoirs and the resiliency that it provides. So we'll start by looking at the wastewater fund. This fund is relatively straightforward. The proposed 5-year rate increase on the wastewater side is 7, 7, 7, 6, and 6% over the next 5 years. This is really just to keep pace with inflation to maintain our day-to-day operations. We also want to maintain our routine capital projects to prevent costly service interruptions, such as sewer overflows. The key project, the big projects we have on this, they're primarily funded by City of LA, so it doesn't impact the wastewater fund as much. The Boston Avenue pump station rehabilitation, that's 100% reimbursed by City of Los Angeles. And as well as rehabilitating the Santa Monica Urban Runoff Recycling Facility, and that's a 50-50 cost share with City of LA. So now we talk about the wastewater, the water enterprise. This is where the conversation really revolving around our reservoirs. So we'll start with the distribution system map of our entire water distribution system. And the 4 reservoirs we have sits at the northeast corner. These are the blue dots you kind of see in the top right corner. They're very important for our water infrastructure. They provide a total of about 40 million gallons, so average about 4 days of demand for our system. They're also there to ensure we have enough supply to meet peak demand. You know, when people wake up in the morning or when they're going to coming home from work, making dinner, that's when our peak usage occurs, or during summertime when we have a lot of visitors in our city. It also provides over 24 hours of fire storage for our city as well to protect against emergencies like the ones we saw earlier in the year. It's also critical to maintain pressure throughout our distribution system. Once the water reaches the reservoirs in those 4 blue dots, it flows like gravity from the northeast corner all the way to the southwest across the 3 pressure zones, the red, the blue, and the green. However, these reservoirs range anywhere from 60 to 70 to over 100 years old, and they're in need of rehabilitation to bring it up to the latest seismic codes, as well as making some resiliency improvements. So that's some examples of the rehabilitation work for the reservoirs. Each of these reservoirs has some elements of these 4 key areas, including seismic structural upgrades, electrical upgrades, water quality, hydraulic improvements, as well as improving security and reliability of the reservoirs. The top right photo is one of the reservoirs to show you some idea of what the rehabilitation scope of work. We'll be thickening the concrete walls and the floor of the reservoir, as well as reinforcing the columns that's supporting the roof. For this reservoir in particular, we actually have to replace the roof, the wood roof with a concrete roof. The photo on the bottom left is our Riviera reservoir. This is our largest reservoir at 25 million gallons. And you can see how many support columns is throughout that reservoir to support it. And all of that needs to be reinforced and brought up to the latest seismic standards. We're also putting in earthquake resilient piping as well where necessary. So in case there's a seismic event, the pipeline will have some give, so it won't snap when the earth moves. Rehabilitating reservoir also aligns with our key safety element goals that was adopted by City Council back in January to have seismically resilient infrastructure, having resilient water storage, being able to meet peak flow water supply, and also be ready for emergencies. On the water side, we did present 2 options to City Council at the March 25th study session. Option 1, meaning funding routine operations, have a funding strategy in place to rehabilitate reservoir and replace our water operations center, and to continue funding routine capital projects. Option 2, would defer rehabilitating the reservoirs as well as reduce the routine capital projects by roughly 25% funding. City council gave direction to proceed with option one, to maintain 100% funding for capital projects, to replace aging infrastructure and to keep pace with day-to-day operations, and to have a funding strategy in place to rehabilitate the reservoirs that I'll talk about in the next slide. The proposed 5-year rate increase for this scenario is 20%, 16%, 9%, 9%, and 6%. The first 2 years are heavy. They're double digits. We understand the burden it puts on the ratepayers. However, it's necessary for our funding strategy to replace the reservoirs. They're heavy because we need to replenish our reserves that we're currently dipping into because of the shortfalls that we've seen the past 5 years, and to have enough funds on hand to match outside funding assistance. So in talking about the financing strategy for the 4 reservoirs in the operations center, the total program is about $130 million. We have talked to federal agencies, US EPA, to get low interest loan from the federal government. We've also talked to state and federal agencies regarding grants. So the current financing strategy, we would loan about $64 million of that $130 from a federal low interest loan. And we're pursuing about $33 million worth of grants from federal and state agencies. But with that, we still need to come up about $33 million of cash on our own. That's why the first 2 years are high rate increases to come up with that $33 million. Part of the funding agreements and financing agreements with these agencies is that the city needs to come up with about 20 to 25% matching funds to be able to receive that outside assistance. There's also a lot of discussions and questions, uncertainties with the current administration, whether we're going to be successful in obtaining those assistances or even if it's going to be available. So with this strategy, with us raising $33 million on our own, we have enough funds to at least rehabilitate 1 reservoir. The largest being the Riviera, that's the one we would tackle first. And we would raise enough revenue to rehabilitate 1 every 5 years. So if we're able to get outside assistance, we could complete the project in about 10 years. With just coming up with cash on our own, we would need to replace 1 every 5 years. So it would take 20 years to rehabilitate the 4 reservoirs. But we still need to defer our improvements and replacement of our water operations center and lab. That funding needs to be still resolved at a later date. With the proposed rate increase, our commodity price for drinking water is still less than a penny a gallon for our tier 1 water rates. It goes from 0.008 to about 0.009 for that commodity price. And that water is for many uses, for drinking, shower, irrigation, firefighting. It's still much more affordable compared to some of the other water commodity prices that you see out there. As I mentioned, option 2, it was presented to City Council. They decided against it because of the risk of deferring the reservoirs is much greater than the cost. Right? If we were to suffer a failure at a reservoir, depending on which one, we could lose all of our local water supply. Or we could lose our imported water supply as well, because all the water supply needs to go to the reservoirs first before it's distributed to all the customers in the system. We have a water quality event that could result in a boil water or do not drink notice as well in the reservoirs, and we'd also risk non-compliance with regulatory requirements and lose control of our infrastructure as well to the regulators. So the risk far outweighs the cost of rehabilitating and having that strategy in place now. In comparing our bills to our neighbors, for a single family home in the city of Santa Monica, currently the average single family home is bi-monthly bill. So they are billed every 2 months for water wastewater services. So on the water portion is about $190 right now for the bill for every 2 months. With the proposed rate increase, the first year that would increase to about $229. Still affordable and lower than our neighbors of Culver City, LA, and Beverly Hills. For a typical multifamily unit, this is a 8-unit apartment complex in the city. That's our typical multifamily. The price goes from $406 to about $505 on par with Pasadena, but still lower than Beverly Hills, Culver City, and LA. And the next comparison is for a typical commercial. This is the fast service restaurant or coffee shop, where that with the proposed rate increase, still cheaper than LA and Culver City, but right about where Beverly Hills is for a typical commercial. And this is for a small retail shop, like a clothing store, bookstore, where their bills will look like with a proposed rate increase. It's on par with our neighbors, Beverly Hills, Long Beach, Glendale. It's still affordable than Pasadena and Culver City. So I mentioned one of the tools that we have implemented and completed in the past 3 years was the advanced water metering infrastructure project. This is where we retrofitted your meters with smart meters, where you have the ability to view your water usage in real time. So instead of seeing how much water you use on your bi-monthly bill every 2 months, you can see your water use on a daily basis, how much you use every hour. This is a great tool to also detect leaks in your system. So instead of seeing your bill with a high bill, then going and looking for your leak, you have the ability to do that within 24 hours to see if whatever you found or fixed is the cause of that leak. So this tool helps our customers understand their water usage better, help them budget their utility bill. But probably the most important part of this is the leak detection piece on the smart water meters. We'll also continue to be maintaining low income assistance program. This is a subsidies from the city general fund, where we provide a discount of $1 per ACF off tier 1 water and wastewater rates. Just an overview of the schedule. We had the study session with City Council back in March 25th. We mailed out all the Prop 218 notices April 11th. Most of you should have received that by now. We're currently doing all the outreach to neighborhood groups, business groups, and having a general outreach meeting as well toward the end of the month. The public hearing for the rate adoption is scheduled from June 10th. If adopted and passed, the new rates will go into effect July 1st, 2025. These are just some resources. If you have questions, feel free to email us at water.resources@santamonica.gov. More about the water rates, go to our water rates website, information on our advanced water metering infrastructure project, as well as how to sign up for that app for Ion Water. Also tips to how to save water as well. These are just some resources that I'll leave up here, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you guys have. Yes.
What is the reason that the rates in Culver City are so much higher?
That's a great question. So Culver City is actually their water provided by a private utility, Golden State Water. So their cost recovery is actually reflective of their operation cost. So as I mentioned, 70% of our cost is fixed. Their rate structure is actually 60% fixed. Our rate structure right now is only 15% fixed and then 85% volumetric. So it's more susceptible swings in how people use water, right? Whereas Golden State Water, they have a more fixed revenue stream coming in to cover their fixed costs. So that's why their cost is so much higher, because that fixed component is so much greater.
I see the guys still manually reading water meters. Is that going to continue, or are they going to be phased out?
Probably until the end of the year at least, because as we're going through this transition to the automated metering, we still want to make sure they're reading properly, because we did catch some instances, there were some discrepancies. So the manual reading probably still going to continue till the end of the year, until, because we're still in the early stages of switching over to the automated piece. Question about the reading. That's true.
Could you talk about a little bit about how safe our water is?
The quality or
Yes.
reliability?
Yes.
I mean, we have one of the most advanced treatment systems in the country for our water supply. One of our projects was awarded Project of the Year. We finished second place with Project of the Year at the global scale. We were the top project in the United States past year for our projects. So we have some cutting edge technology here to purify our water to make sure it's highest quality. So as far as reliability is something that we didn't realize until the fires came back in January. We actually have the ability to turn up our water supply to 110%. And there's no utility in the region that can say that. That's because of our recycled water project underneath the Civic Center parking lot. So during the fires, we had all of our groundwater running. We had imported water coming in, and we also ramped up that facility to 100% to fill water trucks during that time. So it was able to fill water trucks without having to tap into the potable water system to make sure that's available to the hydrant. So we actually had two different systems running at 100% during that time. So,
When these apartment buildings are going up, and they're not rented yet, or they're not full completely. The empty unit fee, is somebody, like the owners of the apartment building, are they being charged for the
fixed component of the bill, yes. Yeah, so they're still responsible for the fix, because that's essentially your capacity and ready to serve charge.
Okay, so in other words, they're paying for it.
Yes, that's
Okay.
it's on two hands.
So did you actually deploy your Santa Monica water for the fires in the Palisades?
No, we did not.
Could
So
you have?
the fire, I mean, it did approach our city borders. There was spot fire that was put out along Adelaide, but didn't actually cross over to our side where we had to use our hydrants for that. But our fire department was stationed all along that side, putting out spot fire.
Sort of two questions following up on the quality question. Is it true that we have a 5-stage osmosis system for the?
Three stages.
Three
Yeah,
stages.
yeah, so we have reverse osmosis at our primary water treatment plant, our Arcadia water treatment plant. We actually have two different wellhead treatment systems at our Shawnock and Olympic well field. Removing different contaminants, and that gets blended and goes to the main plant at Arcadia that has the RO system. So just to walk through the Shawnock side, we have from our groundwater that goes to green sand filtration, 2-stage granular activated carbon, and then gets disinfected. Then it pumps over to Arcadia, it goes through sand filtration again. Then it goes to cartridge filtration, it's a 1 micron cartridge filter, and then it goes to reverse osmosis. Then it's disinfected again, and then it's served as drinking water. So it's multiple barriers for treatment. So we get questions about PFAS for a chemical in our groundwater. Our system can handle that without problem. We actually have 2 different barriers to remove PFAS in our water treatment train right now. Hasn't been detected yet, but we do see it in some of our monitoring wells in our Olympic well field, so it may approach our production wells in the future.
Which is that PFAS?
I'm sorry,
What's PFAS?
PFAS is the common names for every chemical. So it's a chemical that was developed as waterproofing material. So your Gore-Tex, your nonstick pans, burger wrappers, all of that had PFAS in there. So it's that sticky coating or any waterproofing material had it on there. Sorry for
Last question.
So what's what do we own on the Windward campus and over on Wilshire and whatever it is, Broxton?
That's actually our largest well field. That's the Shawnock well field.
Well, that's
So we have,
Charlotte? Oh,
yeah, so we have
Charlotte.
5 production wells and a well treatment facility there.
That was quick. Last one.
I missed, where are the reservoirs located?
I don't know, I can't tell you exactly where the security, but they're the northeast corner of the city. They're all underground, so one is located at our water treatment plant, one is at Riviera Country Club. One is in the northeast neighborhood on top of the hill, the highest point in the city.
Right.
Yes, and then one is located on San Vicente Boulevard.
25th and
Not so secret.
No, it's not only leaving door open. At Los Amigos, what is at Los Amigos baseball park?
That is a urban runoff recycling facility, so that treats runoff and that's treated for irrigation. That actually is not operating because it was a partnership project with City of LA. They had to pump water over to us to treat it. I'm sorry, that's Penmar. Los Amigos is a different one. But yeah, it captures runoff for disinfection and to irrigate the field there.
Thanks so much, Sonny, for coming in. And then we're gonna welcome State Assembly members Burr, who's on Zoom here, I believe. There he is.
Hey, everyone.
Okay, give us 1 second to figure out the audio since you're our first virtual guest here. Can you say something real quick again?
Hello.
Okay. Right now, it's just the iPhone audio, which probably isn't gonna do it. All right, let's try these things real quick. You wanna try that one too?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let me know when you.
Yeah. I think we're gonna do this. We're gonna put this one on mute. Let's see if this works now. Can you hear?
Yep. Can you hear me now?
You sure can.
Great.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah. Nice to see everyone. It's really a pleasure to be here. I know we had a little bit of a false start a month or so back, and so it's a pleasure to be here. For those of you who don't know me, because I've only been represented in this role for, I'm heading into my third year now. I'm Assembly Member Rick Zabur. I represent the 51st District, which starts in Santa Monica and then goes all the way east out to Griffith Park, goes over the hill into Universal City and Universal Studios. And that's the district. A lot of people call it the Route 66 district because it's about a mile on each side of Santa Monica Boulevard all the way across. And I thought what I'd do today is spend a little bit of time talking about what I'm working on in Sacramento. But before that, I just wanted to speak briefly about the fires and the incredible devastation and really the resilience that I think we've all seen in our communities over the last several months. Really grateful to CAL FIRE, the Los Angeles Fire Department, LA County Fire Department, Santa Monica Fire Department, and really their tireless efforts to protect property. We worked very closely with Santa Monica during the evacuation period. We know how difficult that was for residents of Santa Monica. And I've got to say, I'm really impressed by by Santa Monica Fire and your city leaders who were really working around the clock to really protect the community. Here in Santa Monica, my staff, Robbie Steinberg, who I believe is with you tonight, has been working with city leaders in Caltrans to ensure that Santa Monica is accessible, even as PCH remains partially closed. We were able to get those in the initial, to get help to get those initial lane reductions on the 10 moved back from Cloverfield to Lincoln and the 4th Street area. And we've been working with the school district, members of the city council and the Chamber of Commerce and other groups to ensure that Santa Monica's needs and interests are fully taken into account in Sacramento. Been advocating for some of the funding that's been needed to sort of replace some of the draws on Santa Monica's resources. I really want to thank really just, it's impressive to be a part of this community that's really come together to really help those in need. And I know that many in this group were part of that. What I'd like to do now is really sort of talk about some of my highest priority. I've got about 12 bills in the legislature. I'm going to talk about 3 or 4 of them now. But really my top priority is actually helping our film and television industry get back on its feet. I, together with Senator Allen, who also represents Santa Monica, are joint authors of 2 companion bills, AB 1138 and SB 630. They're called the California Film and Television Jobs Act. And really what we're trying to do is modernize the film tax credit. Our industry is in dire straits. We know that that workers in this industry are facing Depression era levels of unemployment. Some folks in some of the unions are facing 40 and 50% unemployment rates. That compares to a 23 to 26% unemployment rate during the Great Depression. And so that sort of just says everything about sort of how important it is that we get this industry back on its feet. As you may have heard, Governor Newsom proposed expanding the film and television tax credit from $330 to $750 million this year. And that was in order to respond to what sort of I refer to as sort of a quadruple whammy that hit the industry. First we had the COVID shutdown, which affected film and television production. Then that was followed by the entertainment industry strikes, and then the wildfires, and then recently, actually not that recently, but starting several years ago, other states and countries understanding how important these jobs are and how it can really energize economies. They have actually implemented aggressive film and tax incentive programs that are luring jobs away. And our program is so non-competitive, both in terms of its size and in terms of how difficult it is to qualify for it, that they've been very successful taking our industry from one in which we probably had about 60% market share 15 years ago, and now it's down to about 12 to 15% in terms of the worldwide share for English speaking TV and film reductions. The bill that Senator Allen and I are working on, and it is co-authored on the Assembly side by Assemblymember Isaac Bryan, who represents the district just to our south, and Assemblymember Sharon Quirk Silva. It modernizes the program by increasing the effective tax rate, and then it expands the kinds of productions that qualify for the program. So, for example, 30-minute scripted programs didn't qualify before. So a lot of those are being lured out of California. Large variety shows like Dancing with the Stars and The Voice, many of those are being lured out of the area. So it expands the productions that qualify. We're also increasing the amount of money that's allocated to independent productions so that we're able to sort of keep those productions in the state as well. And both of those bills have been moving through the legislature. They both got out of their committees in the last 2 weeks and are going to be headed to the floor. We'd like to try to move both bills into the budget, what's called the budget trailer bill, so that they can go into effect as early as the summer, and we can get that money out into the community and at work to try to keep some of these productions back in the state of California. A lot of folks, those that are critical of these bills basically say that it's a corporate giveaway. There have been studies that show that for every dollar in tax credit, it returns $1.07 in tax revenues into state and local tax coffers. And that isn't even with the multiplier effect, that the taxes that are paid by the multiplier of what that injects into the economy. For every dollar we spend, it creates $24 in economic output. And that's why Georgia and New York and Canada and others have actually been adopting uncapped programs, because they know how important these kinds of jobs are and how much they contribute to the community. My second high priority is a bill that is AB 715, which is really focused on addressing the growing problem that we're facing in K through 12 schools of anti-Semitic content coming into the classrooms, and actually kids and families in the Jewish community facing ostracism and hate that's coming out of the schools. Very proud to be the co-author with Assemblymember Don Addis, and we just announced over the weekend that the new bill, AB 715, will be co-authored by all of the chairs of the diversity caucuses, the Latino, Black, and API caucus, to move forward an anti-hate bill that's focused on making sure that our schools are free of academic content that vilifies Jewish students and families. Next bill I'll talk about a little bit, because its genesis is here in Santa Monica, and the bill sponsor is Santa Monica College, and that's AB 648. Let me start by just articulating a pretty disturbing statistic. According to a 2024 report by the California Legislative Analyst's Office, roughly 60% of California's community college students have faced housing insecurity, and almost 25% have experienced homelessness. This is over twice the percentage of UC students who experienced housing insecurity or homelessness in that same period. While there are multiple factors contributing to this crisis, one that can't be ignored and is easily remedied is the ease with which educational institutions can build student housing themselves. While the CSU and UC systems have long had the authority to build student and staff housing regardless of how a property is zoned, community colleges have never had that same authority. So my bill, AB 648, would allow community colleges to actually build student housing in the same way that they can build an educational building, as long as it's within a half a mile of the camp, either on campus or within a half a mile of the campus itself. So that's an important bill sponsored by Santa Monica College. It's supported by almost every community college in the state. it has two benefits. One is it addresses this crisis that we're facing of homelessness among community college students, but it also eases the housing supply for everyone else. We have such an incredible housing shortage with rents going up. For every student housing unit we build, we're either taking a student off the street or we're taking a student out of the market that is actually in taking up a housing unit that could be used by someone else. Third bill that I'll talk a little bit about is what we call the FOUND Act, which stands for Friends of Oreo United During Disasters. And this is a bill in which the advocacy also comes from leaders in Santa Monica, including our mayor, Lana Negretti. The bill is named after Oreo, who is a Pomeranian who went missing during the Palisades fire. And his owner, Casey Colvin, searched for him for 5 heartbreaking days. He was eventually found alive near their home that had been burnt during the fire. But his story highlights a glaring gap in how we respond to emergencies in California, and demonstrates that pets can too easily become separated from their families during these disasters. In California, where wildfires, floods, and other disasters are increasingly common, we need emergency plans that reflect the reality that pets are part of our families. Essentially what the bill does, and what this bill also does, is it's not only protecting the pets, but it's protecting the families, because we know that people will go to great lengths to protect their pets if they're basically trapped in a home or left behind. And so what the act does is it requires cities and counties to include pet rescue procedures in their emergency plans going forward, so that they'll be prepared to safely rescue animals from mandatory evacuation zones, similar to the one that Santa Monica recently experienced. It also requires cities and counties to designate a way that residents can call and get assistance if they need help evacuating a pet or retrieving one that's left behind. It helps reunite families and local governments, because they must post a public list of pets that have been rescued online. And it's something that we now know is needed here in the state of California, and is and obviously was sort of inspired by some of the work that the city of Santa Monica did, helping residents rescue their pets during the mandatory evacuation period that Santa Monica found. And then, the other things that I'm working on, as you all know, is I'm a big climate advocate. We have a number of bills that are focused on really moving to a clean energy future, one that requires locals and cities and towns to put in place climate action and electrification elements to move to a clean energy future. Another one that really is trying to expedite electric transmission infrastructure in the state of California. And of course, I'm still involved in much of the work to try to advance offshore wind, despite the opposition from the Trump administration, because we need that if we're going to move off of dirty fossil fuels into a carbon-free future. So with that, let me pause now and stop. We have some other bills that I could talk about. You may have read about them. I'm happy to answer questions about this or anything else that's on your mind.
I'm happy to help direct the. Go ahead.
I'm curious if you could maybe give us an example or talk a little bit more about examples of sort of the anti-Jewish content that you were describing and wanting to route out of the system.
So, it's been sort of surprising to me, as someone who's not a part of the Jewish community, to sort of see what has happened in some of these school districts across the state of California. There is a so AB 101 created a requirement that school districts put in place an ethics studies course by 2025, and that'd be made a high school graduation requirement by 2030. When they did that, they never required that standards be put in place to guide what that curriculum the content of that curriculum, and it would be the only graduation requirement where the state has not developed standards to guide school districts and teachers. The result of that is that the curriculum can be easily hijacked from people that have a particular point of view. And so, for example, we've seen curriculum that that uses anti-Semitic tropes, depicting members of the Jewish community as being sort of powerful, being colonizer oppressors, dividing the class into groups of students that support the state of Israel versus who don't. We've had some courses up in the Pajaro School District. We've had cases where the school board itself engaged in a host of anti-Semitic tropes as part of when they had Jewish families that were concerned about the adoption of what they considered to be anti-Semitic curriculum, and the members of the Jewish community were basically subjected to anti-Semitic tropes in the board meeting, to the extent that the county board ended up essentially calling out what had happened. The school board basically, rather than taking action against the school board member that did this, actually refused to do that. And of course, that what Pajaro School District did is, of course, been has swept the state in terms of what happened. We had a school district in Santa Ana that actually was trying to adopt what is called this liberated ethnic studies curriculum that has a lot of the anti-Semitic content in it. They purposefully scheduled the hearings on the curriculum on Jewish holidays so that members of the Jewish community couldn't attend. And so those are just, I think, some of the examples, but it basically is about sort of the content of this particular version of ethnic studies. The new bill that we're doing is not focusing on ethnic studies, so it won't create standards. What it really will do is it will basically create new protections of what constitutes national origin discrimination and discrimination based on religion. There will be standards that school boards will be held to, and school districts will be held to. So unlike the prior bill, which actually focused on creating standards, which would have taken a long time, frankly, and could have delayed implementation of the ethnic studies curriculum for the school districts that are doing them correctly, it would have taken a long time. And so we're sort of moving towards another approach that is really looking at protections in the community.
Would that involve a large, broad spectrum of people in defining that, or just a Jewish point of view?
No, it's all of the entire, all the chairs of the diversity caucuses in the legislature are basically engaged in
Muslims, Christians.
Yes.
All.
Yes. All. Yes. And in fact, the definition, the strengthened definition of religious discrimination doesn't include just Judaism. It includes Hinduism. I think we expanded it to Tao. I mean, it's Islamophobia. I mean, it's a broad set of protection. Yeah.
The complexity of the identity of religion and state is complex.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions in the room? Or anyone online? I guess maybe one last one. You at the beginning of the call talked about the efforts of the people here in LA to respond to the flare. Just curious what things were like in Sacramento, and the effort to try to get support to those that needed it here. Was it there when you needed it? And then just as we think about resiliency, I think the PET bill maybe speaks to some of what's being discussed, but what are you seeing along those lines?
Well, there's a package of bills that are moving towards through the legislature to try to help make sure that we're expediting the rebuilding of the communities that are affected, not only Palisades but Altadena and the other parts that were burned. Obviously, trying to learn from our mistakes. So it's a combination of trying to do this in a way that's expedited, but at the same time, making sure that when we're rebuilding, that we're doing that in a way that in which there's greater hardening, in which we're learning from the things that we didn't know when some of these communities were built in the first time. We're looking at ways in which we're addressing sort of some of the financing constraints that people have in terms of when folks were actually underinsured and actually need to are having problems with refinancing on the rebuild. Folks are rethinking, are taking a look at, is there anything more that we need to do in terms of focusing on sort of resiliency of our utilities and our water and electric systems. So there's a whole host of things that the legislature is looking at. I think there's probably 30 or 40 bills now that take pieces of problems that have been identified.
Great to hear. There is one more question.
One more question.
Yes.
How do you see the limitations that are being placed on the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration in relation to the work you're doing with the environment?
I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about, other than you're talking about the Trump administration's limitations.
Well, yeah, some of the, like getting rid of some of the services of NOAA.
Yep.
Such
yeah,
as,
I mean, yeah,
such as giving us really good graphic information about the weather in our areas and what's coming up.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that is harmful. I mean, I think in the desire to try to cut, in the name of efficiency, we're cutting a lot of things that are important and provide crucial services that we don't really, we don't appreciate on a day-to-day basis, but are important in our communities. And the cuts are not resulting in significant cuts in resources that are going to fund this huge tax cut that Trump is trying to fund. I think the good news to a certain extent is that some of these cuts are being restored as piece by piece, it becomes clear that the cuts were to things that are necessary. But we haven't seen the full extent of sort of the firings that have taken place and the cutbacks yet. I mean, we're starting to sort of hear about the difficulty that people are having dealing with the Social Security Administration now, as there have been so many cuts in resources, and there are not people in the office. It's harder to get appointments in the office. People aren't answering the phones. There's taking longer to access databases through the internet, and so that's just one example of the things that I find really problematic in what the federal administration is doing.
We appreciate you joining us tonight, and hopefully see you in a few more months here. We welcome you back. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Should we turn that off?
What's this too? Oh, by the way, I turned it up.
I thought it was great. This one's off now too. Yeah. Okay. I don't believe. It must have been something that came up with the city, so we'll have to reschedule with the mayor. But let's, get into some board business here. From an executive committee standpoint, Kelly, I don't know if there's anything that you have from an executive committee standpoint. Okay. So yeah, I don't think there really is anything there. Sean and Patty will be back again next month. If we wanted to start going around the room, are there committees that have significant updates? I don't have a list of the committees in my.
Thank you.
Okay, Abe, let's go with you.
Yeah, for next month's meeting, fire department is scheduled to come in. We'll be talking about a new program called Community Connect. The OEM, Office of Emergency Management, won't be able to make it to any of the meetings this year because of shortage of staff. And there will be no CERT, community emergency response team classes for the rest of the year because of the same.
Okay, thanks. That's great. Any other boards? Diversity and anything? Not trying to put you on the spot. Okay. I will say that the housing committee had a pretty lively conversation after the last month's meeting, which I thought was great. We got a lot of new attendees engaged, and we talked a little bit about what had been brought up with the opinion piece in the Santa Monica Daily Press. I don't think that we need to continue to drain it too much, but I'll say that there was discussions that were had with some of the existing council members that made those that were in attendance to this housing committee meeting feel better that this wasn't going to be an immediate priority. And so while we definitely discussed how we could think about influencing future decisions about where things are built and how they look when they are built, I believe that most people left feeling like it wasn't something that we should be worried about at the current time. Anything to add? There's a few attendees from the meeting.
Well, the only thing I took away from it was sort of to lay low at this moment. I've written all the council people, I haven't heard from anybody. Should I go ahead and do emails or do other things, or should I just stay quiet?
Do you have an opinion?
I'd stay quiet. Yeah, that's the impression I got.
Yeah. Okay. And anything else from that meeting that's worth sharing?
I think that people are very, very concerned about Main Street and what's going to happen along Main Street, and that we need to pay close attention to whatever development is happening on Main Street, which is none right now, right? There's not any new anything coming right now.
Yeah. Okay, so that's kind of the housing update there. And then I see she just took a bite, but I know in the newsletter, the conversation around the schools or the news around the schools has been, one of the things that has been at the top of the header. So Christina, I don't know if there's anything to share on schools.
I just talked to Dr. Shelton last week, I guess. And, the news article's correct, everything you read, but, the Ocean Park Neighborhood School, until it gets a new name, it will have a new name, will open in January. The children that attend SMASH will move from the Olympic, the Obama Center to that school that January, and then the next year they'll start hopefully building the school up more and welcoming the neighborhood kids. But unfortunately, that leaves like 8 of our neighborhood kids that are wanting to attend first grade at a neighborhood school that have been waiting for 2 years now for a school to open. They don't get to, there's no room in the little Obama campus. Instead of opening a second first grade for 8 first graders, they're opening a second TK so they can build the school, and they have the numbers. So that's an unfortunate circumstance because we're all paying for a bond. And we want our neighborhood kids to go to their neighborhood school. So in the meantime, they're going to Grant mostly, I think, and some at Will Rogers. What I asked Dr. Shelton to really consider is that the next year when they're opening in August, to really think about those older kids that, you know, we're all paying this bond for. Do you open a first, second grade class to accommodate those kids that are saying, hey, we want to go to this school, we live in this neighborhood? Because some of our families are like, why are we paying so much to live here? We can go live somewhere else and our kids can walk to school. I don't have to live in the car and drive them to Grant. So, that is the best we can do, honestly. You know, when the school campus closed, when John Muir walked out, there was never gonna be a John Muir again, and I was very clear about that with everybody, and everybody said I was overreacting, and I held a rally, and maybe only 60 people came, no one from this group, although they were invited. And then I was told by past presidents, you're overreacting, that will never happen. There will never be a John Muir. It's gonna be one school, it will have a new name. The current SMASH people will all be there, and the neighborhood kids can join, and it will be project-based learning. And that is what the school will be. And that is our reality. There's probably no changing that at this moment. So, but I have met for many years now with our Board of Education members. I speak with Dr. Shelton regularly and Dr. Richardson. I appreciate that they're very honest with me, even if I don't like what they're telling me, you know, and they do want to do right by our neighborhood, and all I can do is keep like kind of being in their face about it. Yeah. As nicely as I can, because I want them to still tell me things. So that's what I know.
I'm just curious. One, what is wrong with project-based learning?
Nothing is wrong with it.
And two, what is it, John Muir, just is it the name? Because John Muir was underperforming.
If you were a family at John Muir, and I was a gem of a school. Did it have its issues? It totally did. Those were solvable. It was a community that was dispersed. It was very hurtful in that moment.
Yeah.
So, and there were years where they brought test scores up, and we were advocating for resources in order to bring test scores up. And we were not getting those resources because there was always the plan to shut the school, and then water intrusion made it very easy to shut the school.
Yeah. Yeah. So are you going to go to the neighborhood school?
My kids are now in middle school and high school. Like my youngest was in that last class to culminate from John Muir, but I'm still very close with all the teachers that, you know, and people from the neighborhood call me to tell me, I can't get my kid in the school yet. And I go, let me talk to the principal and see when they think there's gonna be spots and how many spots there will be, you know, because I know Jessica, who's the principal of SMASH, she's fantastic for kids and band with my kid.
She's fabulous.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with project-based learning. I think every kid has their own needs, and so for some kids that's great, and for others that's not so much. You have to kind of know what your kids need. You know, but it will always be like a sad thing for those of us that were in that community. So that's what it is. Losing your identity, right?
Tragic.
And some of those teachers have been there for 30 years, so they lost a 30-year identity versus a couple kids losing a 3-year or whatever.
Yeah.
You have a question? That's fine.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, you can join.
I was just asking him, I don't know the rules, because
You're good, yeah. What's up?
Speak about. and I don't really have a question, I'm just curious, because while I'm thinking with all the subjects that are coming up, I don't know. Oh, wait, one kind of far-fetched idea that I have to help my area's problem, where I live, where Mark lives, etc. Can we get someone of importance, and I don't mean to inflate anybody's ego, but you guys are more important to the city and their reps than I am. So would you ask them the following questions? If the fire department is being ethical and truthful in saying we can't have speed bumps because of their trucks, and I'm a practical person, I've had practical licenses, etc. I understand that.
Sure.
However, we don't have speed limit signs. And I'm wondering why the wealthier, shall we say, neighborhoods in other parts of the city already have speed bumps, or they gotta remove them. And I'm serious about that. If we're gonna not give them to us, they should be removed elsewhere.
Yeah. I think.
So will one of you delegate amongst yourselves to contact the fire department chief and whoever else you deem it necessary to get practical, reasonable answers as to why we can't have a limit? Because when I go down to Second Street, I'm in danger of my life.
Okay.
On Third Street, a prominent person who owned homes there and sent food, had a child, young child, that went through his whole teenage decade having 17 operations because of a speeder on Third Street. No, his level will be the same. Why don't we have speed limit signs? Why don't we have a real, honest discussion about speed bumps and whether we need them or not? And if we really do need them, I travel around the city a lot in my job. I go to neighborhoods all the time. Some of them have speed bumps that are flatter and not so damaging to the vehicle, and etc. Others are different. I mean, I go to Kaiser, West LA, there's one that no matter how slow you go, that goes like this to your suspension.
Yeah.
So these are variables that can be brought up to people who do things like designing and have importance in and say, thank you.
Yeah, I think what I can definitely commit to doing is I think we should voice this at the next meeting, and maybe even advance, we could send a note so that they can like specifically address this problem area. I think it sounds like it needs to be explored. We need to make sure if they're thinking about it.
Have you had the fire chief here?
Yeah, he's been here before.
Well,
You know, I think he actually, is he coming next? Does anybody
I
know?
think the fire chief is coming.
I think he's coming next month, yeah.
He should be here to justify why his department says it. If he does not directly say it.
Yeah.
Somebody's
He's gonna
got
be talking mainly about community connect.
Okay.
Well, can somebody make sure that the subject is going to be brought up? Because I can't guarantee that I'm going to be here to raise my.
Yeah, yeah.
And
And it's a certain area for streets, right? Or is it a couple?
it's
corners?
every side street that's small.
Okay.
For instance, Second Street runs all the way from Bob Dylan's old studio down to, I think, Rose Avenue, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
And that's was roughly in cities of San Juan borders are. And it's only 3 lanes wide, parking lane on one side, parking lane on the other side. It's one direction, one lane.
Yeah.
And they come barreling down, they mean drivers, irresponsible drivers, come barreling down the hill, going west, speeding, or at least at a healthy 30 miles an hour, which I think they're allowed to do. I'm not sure. That's another subject that should be cleared up for what streets and what speed limits, because they're not posted, and even policemen have incorrect ideas about it.
Yeah.
And then they swing wildly, depending on their speed, to the left to avoid going down Main Street because some internet robot says turn left on Second Street, and they go barreling down there.
Okay. Yeah.
And
What
Third Street has, excuse me, but Third Street may justify a slightly higher speed limit
Okay.
I think Second Street should be 20 miles an hour. And, you know, Ocean Park is 25, I think, Ocean Park Boulevard, I think,
Okay.
if I remember, and Third Street has several, they have two active traffic lanes and two parking lanes. So they've got 4 lanes and it's quite wide, and everybody looks at that as a speedway
Yeah.
that people that don't live in, but usually motorcycles, loud noise. I meant to ask police about that, but.
Yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off. I mean, I think people are thinking about it, which is hopefully helpful.
You know what, vehicular generated noise, if I were on your board, would be one I consistently would bring up and make a pest of myself. This
Okay.
noise is not necessarily because Sacramento has not yet done something that your previous mayor was wonderful. Tried to get this noise issue before the assembly.
Thank you.
I'll shut up.
Thank you for voicing. Yeah, we appreciate you attending and, we can send a note. That's easy. Okay, so anybody else, other topics that would be board related or not board related?
We get speed bumps on 4th Street.
Yeah, that's coming up. Yeah. Can we help? Are there?
Yeah, Florida. This is the 150-year anniversary of Santa Monica, I guess. You all know that.
No, serious?
Yeah.
150 years, city of Santa Monica.
Based on who founded Santa Monica?
Since it became a city.
Well, was it Abercrombie or who? I mean, who? You know,
No, it was the city of Santa Monica,
Jones and Baker.
He found it.
1875.
Jones and Baker.
Jones and Baker, we have those two houses.
Okay, so it's coming up, 150th. So what's anything?
And this year I invited Palisades to join us.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because they can't, they thought about having it up in the Palisades, but it's just not gonna work out. So they're gonna join us. Very nice. I don't know how many people will come, but my arms are open.
Yeah.
Start to sign up. I want to do a marching band to come. Right. The seniors and the marching band are not showing up. And we have about 10 to 15 kids that might show up, but a lot of the instruments are gone. So we're gonna ask Lana if she could donate a few instruments to rent them out for free or very low cost.
Their color guard joined the Samuel color guard and they went to championships together. So there's been rumors about whether their couple marching band kids would just join our
Right.
marching band also.
And I think actually they may just join San Monica's marching band. It was an idea that's put forward, so that'd be nice, because we don't have, during July, we don't have the biggest marching band like we have during competition. A lot of families go away for July. So we have a lot, and we have a lot more than the Palisades, but we'll make it up.
Great.
What do you mean you're from the dawn, from fire? And but now, were the members of these bands in March, particularly just from Santa Monica, or including before? Well, some more. Yeah, there's people that march up in the Palisades parade that are not from the Palisades. Oh, just like we have people in ours that are not from Santa Monica.
And so it's gonna be Friday, 10 a.m.
We can have it Tuesday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It doesn't matter.
No, I mean, it's July 4th, it's a Friday.
Friday morning, 9:30 to 11:30, probably run a little bit longer this year.
Yeah.
More people involved.
Okay, great.
We're gonna run it the same way.
Awesome.
And there are going to be a whole lot of things happening for the 150th birthday of Santa Monica for the next
That's right.
6 months.
Yeah, we're gonna kick it off with the parade, because I think the actual date was July 14th, or just right after the parade is the actual date for City Week. So we'll kick it off with the parade and go.
Great.
I have a question I figured you guys might know. Who do I call when I notice that the lights on Main Street will, fall? Because they're going off in the daytime and not at night.
Ghostbusters.
Okay.
It might be the Main Street Business Improvement Association, 100.
The Main Street Business Association?
Yeah.
Make it for public works. The city.
Okay, well, I just want to find who, because I mean, they're wasting, it doesn't look cute having it dark in certain areas and then just lit up in the daytime and no one notices it's a waste of energy and I don't know who to tell.
Yeah, there's a Main Street website and they would probably have a contact. And yeah, thanks for joining. Do you want to introduce, I think everybody else has said hello. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but if you want to say hello and.
Hi, everybody. It's my first time coming here. You know. Sound like Main Street.
Okay.
I don't mean to be rude, but who are you?
Yeah, I'm someone who actually thinks that speed bumps, if they're in one area and you don't have them, you shouldn't be so petty as to say they shouldn't have them. I thought that was kind of sad.
I'd rather they have them on our street.
Yeah, that's fine, but
It's
to
so
then,
expensive.
to make it into something else, it was very kind of mean spirited.
It's just.
It kind of made me want to leave, that's what it made me feel.
I personally also object to Mr. Trump spending $10 million on it.
Thank you.
Stay with the program here.
Okay, so anyway, I think all we need to do is approve Kelly's minutes from last month before we could consider adjourning. Oh, have they not been sent out? Sorry.
They did.
Oh, they were. Yeah, they were awesome. Everybody already approved them online, right? Do we have a motion to approve the minutes? Tony? Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Bye.
Okay, motion passes. And any motion to adjourn?
I motion to adjourn.
Oh, I second.
Oh.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Hey, what about the squirrels?
We don't need a motion to adjourn, you just need to say. Fine.
Okay.
I know we have